welcome to our deep dive. We're going to be uncovering the hidden forces of human nature.
Yeah.
And you guys sent in some really thought-provoking excerpts from Robert Greene's Concise Laws of Human Nature.
Awesome book.
Yeah, so we're ready to unearth the most fascinating insights.
I love it.
This book really dives into how we're not as rational as we think we are.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. It's almost like
It is.
this book is a decoder ring for human behavior.
It's like he gives us that, decoder ring for human behavior.
By understanding these laws, we can better understand why people do what they do.
I love that idea.
Maybe even ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
One of the things that really jumps out from the excerpts
Yeah.
is this idea that we are deeply irrational beings.
Yeah.
He even says that our emotions can dominate our thoughts and actions more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
How can that be?
Well, it's fascinating because Greene's not being pessimistic.
Right.
He's just being really insightful.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying we have these two roommates in our heads, the emotional one and the rational one.
Okay.
But the emotional roommate keeps hogging the TV remote.
Oh, gosh.
And making impulsive snack choices.
Oh, no. Whoa.
All the time.
So it's like a constant power struggle between our emotional and rational selves.
It really is.
And the emotional side often wins.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
And the reason for this roommate drama is really fascinating.
Okay.
Our brains evolved in a way that prioritized emotions.
Huh.
Think fight or flight responses.
Yeah.
Those emotional centers developed way before our rational and logical thinking abilities. So we're wired to feel first and think later.
So basically we're walking around with Stone Age emotional software in our modern brains.
Pretty much.
That's a bit unsettling.
It is kind of unsettling when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of amazing when you think about how far we've come.
Yeah.
With that kind of wiring.
Yeah.
So
like we've built a spaceship.
Yeah.
But we're still running on coal power or something.
Yeah, like a really old engine.
Yeah.
But it still works.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Greene gives a powerful example of how this plays out in our lives.
Okay.
He says you are largely unaware of how deeply your emotions dominate you.
It's true.
They make you veer toward ideas that soothe your ego. They make you look for evidence that confirms what you already want to believe.
It's that confirmation bias.
Right.
That we love so much as humans.
It's like emotions are constantly whispering in our ear, nudging us toward comfortable ego-boosting beliefs.
Yes.
Even if they're not entirely rational.
Yeah. They don't have to be rational. They just have to feel good.
Oh, it's like we're all in our own little echo chambers of emotion.
Oh, I love that.
Filtering out anything that challenges our worldview.
Totally. Yeah, and Greene argues that this disconnect between emotions and logic is at the root of many bad decisions and negative patterns. It's why we sometimes repeat the same mistakes, even when we know better.
It's so frustrating.
It is so frustrating.
But it's good to know, I guess, why we're doing it.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how understanding this emotional wiring is so crucial.
Yeah.
But where did these powerful emotions come from in the first place?
Well, think back to our early ancestors.
Okay.
Navigating a dangerous world.
Yeah.
They relied on emotions as a primary form of communication long before language developed. A flash of anger meant back off.
Yeah.
A look of fear signaled danger.
Right.
These emotions were vital for survival.
So emotions were like the original language, a universal language of facial expressions,
That's cool.
body language.
Yes, and the thing is...
Even though we've evolved complex language and communication systems, we're still deeply susceptible to those ancient emotional triggers.
So even though we're texting and tweeting, instead of grunting and pointing, we're still reacting to each other on this primal emotional level.
On a gut level,
That explains a lot about the drama we see unfolding online.
Totally.
All the time.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
Why do we get caught up in online mobs?
Oh, yeah.
Why are we so easily swayed by viral trends or manipulative tactics?
Because those ancient emotional buttons are still being pushed.
This is mind-blowing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How much we are still driven by these ancient forces.
So if we're all running around with this Stone Age emotional software, What
Well,
can we do about it?
that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, are we doomed to be ruled by our primal urges?
Not at all.
Okay.
This is where Green's work becomes incredibly empowering.
Oh,
He argues that self-awareness is the key.
so know thyself and all that.
More than just a philosophical idea, though.
Okay.
He actually gives a really practical framework for understanding this.
Okay.
He talks about understanding the stranger within,
Okay.
meaning those hidden parts of ourselves,
Yeah.
the shadow impulses we often ignore or deny.
Oh, so it's like having a backstage pass to your own mind.
Yeah,
But most of the time, we're just hanging out in the lobby,
totally.
completely unaware of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we don't even know the show is happening.
Yeah.
We're just out there,
Yeah.
getting snacks,
Yeah, exactly.
chatting.
So self-awareness is about getting backstage
It is.
and seeing the emotional machinery
Yeah,
that's driving our thoughts and actions.
the gears are turning.
Yeah.
We just don't see them.
But once we have that awareness,
Yes,
then we can start making conscious adjustments.
exactly.
So we're like emotional engineers,
That's a great way to put it.
tweaking the circuits and fine-tuning the machinery.
Yes. And I love that analogy because it shows that it's a process.
Right.
We don't just suddenly become self-aware
Yeah.
and then everything's fixed.
Snap our fingers and we're enlightened.
Yeah, exactly. It's a process of learning
Yeah.
and tweaking and adjusting.
It's like we're building a better relationship with ourselves.
Totally.
Yeah.
And really getting to know ourselves on
Yeah.
a deeper level.
But how does self-awareness help us understand others?
That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
If you can see through your own irrationality,
Yeah.
you're better equipped to see through it in others.
Right.
You're less likely to be swayed by emotional appeals or manipulative tactics.
It's like developing emotional X-ray vision.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
It's like you can see past the masks that people wear
Yeah.
and understand their true motivations.
Yeah. And Green gives us a practical roadmap for cultivating this rationality.
He does.
He outlines a 3-step process that I think we should delve into.
Absolutely.
So give us the steps to emotional enlightenment. What's the first one?
The first step is recognizing what Green calls low-grade irrationality.
Okay.
Those everyday moods and feelings that subtly color our perceptions without us even realizing it.
So like waking up on the wrong side of the bed and suddenly everyone seems annoying?
Totally.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe you didn't get enough sleep and you're just feeling a little bit more irritable
Right.
than usual.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're seeing everything through this negative lens.
Okay.
And you're snapping at people.
But it's deeper than just a bad mood, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about understanding the biases baked into our thinking
Yes.
because of those subtle emotional currents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing
Yeah.
that these biases
Yeah.
impact our thoughts and actions every day.
Biases. Like what?
Like appearance bias.
Okay.
You know how we often judge people based solely on how they look,
Uh-huh.
on those first impressions?
Oh, yeah.
Something we do all the time.
Yeah.
Even if we don't want to admit it,
Mm.
our emotional brain makes those snap judgments
Right.
based on deeply ingrained evolutionary patterns.
Oh, I've definitely been guilty of that.
We all have.
I've misjudged people based on their clothes or hairstyle before.
It's natural. It's part of our evolutionary heritage.
Right. But the key is to recognize this bias
Exactly.
and counterbalance it
Yes.
with a more reasoned, objective assessment.
Yes. We can't always go with our gut.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how these subtle emotional currents can really steer us off course.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got low-grade irrationality covered.
Right.
What's next?
Now we're facing the big boss.
Okay.
High-grade irrationality.
Oh.
This is when those everyday emotions go into overdrive,
Mm-hmm.
leading to intense reactions.
Uh-huh.
That can result in some pretty bad choices.
Yikes. This sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It can be.
What kind of situations trigger this high-grade irrationality?
Imagine a heated argument.
Okay.
You're angry, you're frustrated,
Yeah.
and you end up saying something you deeply regret.
Ooh.
Or perhaps you make a risky financial decision,
Oh.
fueled by excitement,
Yeah.
and ignoring those warning signs.
Those are some painfully relatable examples.
Right.
Okay, so how do we prevent ourselves from going nuclear
Yeah.
when our emotions get triggered?
That's a great question.
Is it even possible?
It is.
Okay.
The key is recognizing the signs of this high-grade irrationality
Okay.
before it completely takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like catching a rogue wave before it crashes down on you.
So we need to become emotional surfers,
Yeah.
riding the waves of our feelings without getting wiped out.
Exactly.
I like the analogy.
I do too.
Seems pretty challenging, though.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
But with practice,
Yeah.
you can master it.
Okay, so the first step is building that self-awareness muscle.
Yes.
Right.
Learning to spot the warning signs. You might notice your heart racing, your thoughts getting jumbled, or a sudden urge to lash out.
Yeah.
Or make a rash decision.
Oh.
That's your cue to step back.
Okay.
Take a deep breath and let that emotional wave pass.
This is starting to sound a lot like those mindfulness techniques I keep hearing about.
Is this?
Is that what Green is getting at?
Mindfulness is definitely one powerful tool.
Yeah.
But Green offers a broader framework for strengthening our rational thinking.
Okay.
That I think we should dive into next
Yeah,
time.
we should definitely get into that.
Definitely.
But before we do, I have to ask, seriously, but technology gives us so much access to information.
It does.
Like, it connects us with people globally, makes life more efficient. Shouldn't that make us smarter?
You would think so, right?
More rational.
Logically, it seems like it should, but the reality is a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
Green points out that these platforms are designed to prey on our emotional vulnerabilities.
Oh.
They use algorithms to feed us content that triggers our envy, our outrage, and our desire for attention.
Oh.
It's a business model based on grabbing and holding our attention, often through emotional manipulation.
Now that you mention it, I have felt those pangs of envy. Scrolling through perfectly curated vacation photos.
Oh, totally.
And I've definitely gotten sucked into those outrage-fueled news cycles.
Yeah.
Like, those algorithms know exactly how to push our buttons.
They're getting better and better at it, too, all the time.
So we're basically lab rats in a giant social media experiment.
Kinda. Yeah.
Except the experiment is designed to make us more irrational.
In a way, yeah. It's like this unintentional experiment that we're all participating in.
That's a bit alarming.
It is a little bit alarming.
Yeah.
But remember, awareness is the first step toward change.
Okay.
Now that you're seeing how these forces are at play, you can start to make more conscious choices about how you engage with technology.
Okay, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see how understanding these laws can give us more agency in navigating this complex world.
Absolutely.
But before we get too deep into the technology aspect, I want to circle back to those specific biases Green talks about.
Sure.
We briefly touched on appearance bias.
Yeah.
But there's another one I'm particularly fascinated by.
Okay.
Confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're all struggling with that one.
What time?
Especially in this age of filter bubbles and
Yes.
echo chambers.
Totally.
Can we unpack that a bit more
Let's do it.
before we move on?
Okay.
So confirmation bias is this pervasive tendency we have to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs
Right.
while conveniently ignoring evidence that contradicts them.
Exactly.
It's like we're building these mental fortresses around our opinions and only allow in information that reinforces the walls.
It's very comfortable in there.
Yeah.
Very safe.
It's like we're all living in curated news feeds.
Oh, Leaf.
Only seeing the world through this very narrow lens.
Yeah, we're creating our own reality in a way.
Yeah, and social media seems to make this worse, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the algorithms are designed to show us content we already agree with.
Yeah, they want to keep you engaged.
Yeah.
And one of the ways they do that is by showing you things that you already like.
Right.
Things that you already agree with.
So we're basically all living in our own little Truman shows.
I love that analogy. Yeah, it's like this perfect little world.
Blissfully unaware of the bigger picture.
That's a great way to put it.
But what can we do about it?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, how do we break out of these echo chambers?
Right.
And expose ourselves to different perspectives?
That is a fantastic question, and I think it's a perfect place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah. But before we take a break,
yes,
I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Sure.
If we're all susceptible to these biases, to these irrational impulses,
right,
how can we use this knowledge to become more empathetic, more understanding of others?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Is that too idealistic?
I don't know.
Or is it a possibility worth striving for?
I think it's a possibility worth exploring.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's a question we'll continue to explore.
Yes.
In the next part of our deep dive.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned.
We'll be right back. #TTS, the deep dive episode 2025-0103, part 2 of 3.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Robert Greene's concise laws of human nature. We're picking up where we left off, exploring how understanding our inherent irrationality can actually help us cultivate more empathy and understanding.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Like Greene's work highlights how our irrational tendencies can lead to conflict, misunderstanding, but it also offers a path toward greater empathy and connection.
So how do we apply these insights to our daily interactions? Okay, let's say I'm having a heated disagreement with someone.
Okay.
And I can sense that confirmation bias is rearing its ugly head. We're both digging in our heels, only seeing evidence that supports our own side. How can I use this awareness to, diffuse the situation?
Well, recognizing that confirmation bias is at play is a huge first step. That awareness alone can help you detach from the emotional intensity of the argument.
So instead of getting caught up in proving myself, right?
Yeah.
I take a deep breath and say,
Yeah.
okay, I see what's happening here. We're both falling into the confirmation bias trap.
Exactly. That simple acknowledgement can change the entire dynamic of the conversation. It shows that you're willing to be self-aware, that you're not just blindly defending your position.
Right.
And it can create space for a more rational and empathetic discussion.
But what if the other person isn't buying it?
Well,
what if they're still stuck in their confirmation bias bubble, completely convinced they're right and I'm wrong?
That's where empathy comes in.
Okay.
Remember, Greene emphasizes that we're all susceptible to these biases.
Yeah.
So instead of judging the other person for being irrational, try to understand why they're clinging so tightly to their beliefs.
So I should try to see the world from their perspective. Even if I disagree with them.
Exactly.
Put myself in their shoes, so to speak.
It's not about abandoning your own position.
Right.
It's about creating a space for understanding. Recognizing that we're all influenced by emotions.
Right.
Biases and past experiences.
Right, yeah.
It's about acknowledging the shared humanity beneath those differing viewpoints.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of battling it out over who's right or wrong, we shift the focus to understanding each other's perspectives.
Exactly.
That feels much more productive.
I think so.
But what about those really intense, high-grade irrationality situations?
Okay.
Like, let's say someone's in a fit of rage and about to make a destructive decision.
Oh, yeah.
How can we apply these principles in those highly charged moments?
Well, that's when recognizing those warning signs, those emotional triggers becomes absolutely critical. Remember the analogy of a rogue wave? When you see that wave of intense emotion building, you need to create space.
Okay.
Give the other person time and space to cool down before things escalate.
So literally creating physical space,
Sometimes
stepping away from the situation to avoid getting caught in the emotional crossfire.
Sometimes that's the wisest move,
Okay.
but it's also about creating emotional space.
Okay.
Avoid getting drawn into their emotional vortex. Remember, emotions can be contagious. If you react with anger or fear, you'll only add fuel to the fire.
So stay calm.
Yes.
Almost like a mediator trying to de-escalate a conflict.
Exactly.
Easier said than done when someone's emotions are running high.
Oh, it's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
But this is where Greene's insights about the ancient origins of our emotions can be helpful.
Okay.
Remember, those fight or flight responses evolved for a very specific reason.
Right.
They're meant to be short-lived bursts of energy to deal with immediate threats.
Right.
So if you can give the person space and time for that primal energy to dissipate.
Could we need to let the emotional storm pass? Before trying to reason with them? Exactly. You can facilitate this by remaining calm, speaking in a soothing voice, and avoiding any language that might trigger further aggression.
This is making me think about how we approach conflict in our society. It seems like we often reward the loudest, most aggressive voices. What if we took a different approach? One based on Greene's principles of understanding and empathy.
That's a powerful idea, and it aligns perfectly with Greene's vision for a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of human behavior. Instead of labeling people as good or bad, rational or irrational, we need to recognize the complexity of human nature.
It's about seeing people as works in progress. Always evolving and grappling with these primal forces.
Totally.
It's recognizing the shared human experience beneath those surface-level differences.
Absolutely. It's about remembering that we're all in this together. We're all struggling with these same
Yeah.
It's reminding me of another one of those biases Green mentions.
Okay.
Conviction bias.
Oh, yeah.
It's that tendency to cling even tighter to our beliefs when they're challenged.
Yeah.
It seems like that's at play in a lot of conflicts,
Uh-huh.
especially those deeply entrenched, like, political debates or ideological clashes.
Totally.
So conviction bias is fascinating.
It is a paradox.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The more we feel our beliefs are under attack, the more fiercely we defend them.
Right.
Even if evidence contradicts our position.
Yeah.
Our egos get so entangled with being right that we become blind to any information that might challenge our worldview.
It's like those mental fortresses we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
We reinforce those walls with concrete conviction, even if the foundation is shaky.
And again, social media seems to have amplified this tendency.
Right.
It's so easy to surround ourselves with like-minded people who reinforce those existing beliefs. You know, we create these echo chambers where dissenting voices are quickly silenced.
Or drowned out. Right. So how do we break free from this conviction bias trap?
It takes conscious effort, but the rewards are worth it.
Okay.
One powerful strategy is to actively seek out diverse perspectives.
So instead of just reading articles or watching news that aligns with my views, I should make an effort to engage with opposing viewpoints.
Exactly.
Even those that might annoy or irritate me.
That initial discomfort is a sign that you're growing, that you're expanding your perspective.
Oh.
It's like stretching a muscle.
Right.
It hasn't been used in a while.
Yeah.
It might feel awkward at first, but it's essential for flexibility and growth.
This makes me think of that saying.
What's that?
The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
So true.
Sometimes those opposing viewpoints can be annoying, but they can also offer incredible insights.
Yeah.
They can challenge our assumptions.
Absolutely.
And help us see the world in a new light.
That's the beauty of intellectual exploration. The more we expose ourselves to different perspectives, the more nuanced our understanding of the world becomes.
Right.
We start to see the shades of gray, the complexities that we might have missed when we were stuck in our conviction bias bubble.
Okay, so we've got confirmation bias, conviction bias. Is there a whole bingo card of biases?
There might as well be.
That we need to be aware of?
Right.
It's starting to feel like our brains are playing all sorts of tricks on us.
They are. They totally are.
Yeah.
Green identifies several common biases that can cloud our judgment. And they're all fascinating.
Yeah.
One we haven't touched on yet, but that's incredibly relevant to our discussion of empathy, is appearance bias.
That's the one we touched on earlier. The tendency to judge people based solely on their looks. Right?
Exactly.
It seems so superficial.
It does.
Yet it's such a powerful force in our interactions.
It really is. And it's deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
You know, we make snap judgments about people based on their clothes, their hairstyle, their facial expressions, even their body language.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are wired
Yeah.
to make these quick assessments.
Right.
Even before we've had a chance to exchange a single word.
It's like we're walking around with these mental shortcuts, these pre-programmed assessments that tell us who to trust, who to avoid, all based on visual cues.
And you know, those shortcuts were probably helpful for our ancestors who needed to make quick decisions about potential threats or allies.
Right back in the savannah.
Exactly.
You know, and we're running from lions.
Yeah. You got to know who's on your team.
Yeah.
And who's not.
But in today's world, they can lead to all sorts of unfair judgments and missed opportunities.
Yeah, we miss out on connecting with people.
Right.
Because our appearance bias filters them out before we even give them a chance.
So how do we overcome this appearance bias?
Well,
do we need to walk around with blindfolds on?
No, blindfolds required.
To avoid making those judgments.
But we need to cultivate awareness of this bias and make a conscious effort to look beyond those surface appearances.
Right.
Remember Green's idea of the stranger within? We need to apply that same curiosity and open-mindedness to the strangers we encounter in our daily lives.
So it's about getting to know people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Understanding their character, values, motivations, rather than relying on those superficial cues.
Exactly. And this takes time and effort.
Right.
It's about engaging in meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
Listening attentively and resisting that urge to jump to conclusions.
Right.
Based on those initial visual assessments. It's about giving people a chance to reveal their inner selves.
Yeah.
Before we categorize them based on external traits.
This is making me think of all the times I've misjudged someone based on a first impression.
We all have.
I've probably missed out on some incredible friendships and connections.
Totally.
Because I let appearance bias cloud my judgment.
That's why Green's work is so valuable.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're all prone to these errors in judgment, those irrational impulses.
Right.
But it also gives us the tools to overcome those limitations and become more rational, more empathetic individuals.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It really has.
We've uncovered those irrational forces that shape our behavior.
Yeah.
Talked about strategies for cultivating more rationality, and even touched on the power of empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
What a journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. I hope our listeners are finding this deep dive as thought-provoking as we are.
I'm sure they are.
I hope so.
But before we wrap things up,
okay,
I want to make sure we leave our listeners with some concrete takeaways.
Yeah.
What are some key things they can do to apply Green's insights to their own lives?
The most important takeaway is the power of self-awareness.
Okay.
It's the foundation for everything else.
Right.
Start by paying close attention to your emotional reactions.
Okay.
Notice how those moods and feelings influence your thoughts, your perceptions, your decisions.
So become an observer of your own mind, like a scientist studying a fascinating, ever-changing subject.
Exactly. Once you cultivate that awareness, you can start to question your assumptions.
Okay.
To look for evidence that might contradict your cherished beliefs.
Right.
You can begin to dismantle those mental fortresses.
Yeah.
And create space for new perspectives.
And that's where those specific biases we talked about come in.
Yes.
We need to be aware of confirmation bias, conviction bias, appearance bias.
Yes.
All the other mental traps that can distort our thinking.
Totally. It's like we need to become bias detectives.
Yeah.
Constantly on the lookout for those subtle clues
right.
that reveal how our minds are tricking us.
Become a master bias detective.
I love it.
And remember, it's not about suppressing those emotions.
No.
It's about understanding their influence.
Yeah.
And making more conscious choices about how you respond.
Emotions are a powerful energy source.
Right.
But we need to learn how to channel that energy wisely.
So we're not trying to become emotionless robots.
No.
It's more about becoming emotional alchemists.
Yeah.
Right? Transforming those raw primal feelings into something more refined, more beneficial.
Now we can harness that emotional energy.
Right.
And use it to fuel empathy, understanding, and connection.
I love that it's a powerful reminder that even though we're hardwired for irrationality, we also have the capacity for incredible growth and transformation.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, what specific strategies can we use to cultivate that emotional alchemy?
Yeah.
Are there certain techniques or practices that can help us strengthen our rational muscles?
That's a great question, and I think it's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore those practical strategies, those mental workouts that can help us become more rational, more empathetic, and more masterful in navigating the complexities of human nature.
Okay, I'm ready for those mental workouts.
We'll get there.
This has been such an engaging conversation.
It has been.
But before we jump into the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If we can recognize those irrational forces at play in ourselves and others, can we use this knowledge to create a more compassionate and understanding world? Is that too idealistic?
It's a great question.
Or is it a possibility worth striving for?
That's a beautiful question, and I think it's one that each of us needs to grapple with individually and collectively.
Yeah.
We'll explore that question and delve into those practical strategies for cultivating rationality. In the final part of our deep dive, #TTS, the deep dive, episode 2025-0103, part 3 of 3.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. We are wrapping up our exploration of Robert Greene's concise laws of human nature, and I'm excited to dive into those practical strategies for cultivating rationality and empathy. After all, what good is understanding all this stuff if we can't actually apply it, to make our lives and the world a little bit better?
That's the key question. Knowledge without action is like a seed that never gets planted.
Right.
So let's talk about how to turn these insights into real-world change.
Okay, I'm all ears. We've talked about recognizing those low-grade and high-grade irrationality moments. What's the next step in Green's framework? How do we actually, start training our brains to be more rational and make better choices?
The final step, and this is where the real work begins, is all about strengthening your thinking capacity. It's like hitting the mental gym,
Oh, wow.
building up that rational muscle so it can counterbalance the emotional weight we've been discussing.
So it's about developing those mental biceps.
Exactly.
Okay, so we can resist those emotional impulses that often lead us astray.
Green provides a range of strategies, but one that she emphasizes is mindfulness meditation.
Okay, you're going to have to sell me on this one.
Okay.
I'll admit I'm not a natural-born meditator.
Okay.
I get fidgety, my mind races, and I start planning my grocery list. How can something that seems so passive actually help us become more rational?
I hear you, but mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind or achieving some blissful state of nothingness.
Right.
It's simply about paying attention to your present moment experience with curiosity and without judgment.
So instead of getting swept away by a torrent of thoughts and emotions, we're learning to observe them
Yes.
as they arise without getting caught in the current.
Precisely. It's like becoming a curious observer of your own mental and emotional landscape.
Okay.
And the more you practice, the more you develop that muscle of awareness.
Okay.
You start to see those patterns of irrationality,
Yeah.
the anger, the fear, the envy more clearly, and you have more choice in how you respond.
Okay, that makes sense. But do we have to sit on a cushion and chant Om to get those benefits?
Not at all. Mindfulness can be incorporated into your daily life in so many ways.
Okay.
You can practice mindful walking, mindful eating, even mindful dishwashing.
Interesting.
The key is to bring that same quality of attention and awareness to whatever you're doing.
So it's about slowing down, paying attention,
Yes.
noticing those subtle sensations and emotions that we usually just tune out.
Exactly. And even a few minutes each day can make a difference.
Wow.
You'll start to notice how your mind habitually jumps to conclusions, or gets caught in negative thought loops, or reacts defensively to perceived threats. And once you see those patterns, you can start to interrupt them.
This is starting to sound less intimidating and more intriguing. But what about those of us who are, shall we say, meditation challenged? Are there other techniques we can use to strengthen those rational muscles?
Absolutely. Another powerful tool Green recommends is questioning your assumptions.
You mean like stopping to ask myself, why do I believe this? Is there actual evidence to support this claim? Or am I just clinging to this belief because it makes me feel good or aligns with my tribe?
Exactly. It's about cultivating intellectual humility.
Okay.
Recognizing that you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
That your perspective is just one among many.
So it's about embracing that sense of curiosity and open-mindedness we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. And it's about being willing to change your mind when presented with new information. Conviction is admirable, but blind conviction can lead you down a dangerous path.
Right. It's like we're all detectives searching for the truth, but we have to be willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it means challenging our cherished beliefs.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
And remember, questioning your assumptions isn't about becoming a cynic or doubting everything you hear. It's about developing a more discerning mind.
Okay.
Being able to separate fact from fiction.
Right.
Evidence from opinion.
This reminds me of something else Green talks about. The dangers of falling prey to groupthink. It's like our desire to fit in, to belong, can sometimes override our rational judgment, especially when we're surrounded by like-minded people.
That's such an important point. We are social creatures wired for connection and belonging.
Right.
But that need for social approval can sometimes blind us to alternative perspectives or lead us to make choices that go against our better judgment.
So how do we resist that pull of the crowd, especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with messages designed to appeal to our tribal instincts?
One strategy is to cultivate a diverse intellectual diet.
Okay.
Read books and articles from authors who challenge your worldview. Engage in respectful conversations with people who hold different opinions.
So break out of those echo chambers we talked about earlier and expose ourselves to a wider range of perspectives.
Exactly. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is a sign of growth.
Right.
It's like stretching a muscle you haven't used in a while. It might ache a bit, but it's making you stronger and more flexible.
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see how all these strategies fit together. Mindfulness helps us become aware of our emotional patterns and biases. Questioning our assumptions strengthens our critical thinking skills. And seeking out diverse perspectives helps us break free from the grip of groupthink and develop a more nuanced understanding of the world.
You got it. And remember, this is an ongoing journey, not a destination. We'll never eradicate irrationality completely. But by cultivating these practices, we can become more conscious, more deliberate in how we navigate the complexities of human nature.
This has been such a fascinating and empowering deep dive.
It has.
We've explored the irrational forces that shape our behavior, uncovered those hidden biases that cloud our judgment, learned practical strategies for cultivating rationality and empathy. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for navigating the world.
It's been a joy exploring these ideas with you, and I hope our listeners feel equipped to apply these insights to their own lives and interactions. Remember, understanding human nature isn't about becoming cynical or pessimistic. It's about becoming more self-aware, more compassionate, and ultimately more empowered to create positive change.
I couldn't agree more. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Robert Greene's concise laws of human nature. Keep those mental muscles flexed, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.